Hello, hello. Good afternoon for those folks on the in the mid of the country and East Coast US, and probably good evening to Europe and good morning to APAC. Thanks for joining us for today's session of Overdose and Chill. We are joined today by Meghan Stabler from BigCommerce. Hello, Meghan.
Hello, Andrew. Good to see your face again in Yonkers.
It's funny. Usually when I hop on these, it's with someone who I've known for a while, just having been in the ecosystem for several years now. And this one's a bit unique. We actually only met this week. We were connected to talk about Clubhouse, which is, all the rage. All the kids are doing it. And sort of in the middle of that chat, I just thought, hey, we have an opening this week, and I would absolutely love to continue this conversation live because I was getting so much value out of it that I thought, perhaps others would as well. So appreciate you jumping on here.
My pleasure.
So usually, we go through a little bit, background history, sort of how you got where you are today. You are currently Vice President of Product Marketing and Communications, if I'm not mistaken, at BigCommerce.
That is correct. That's one of the defined titles, but there's a lot more to it as well. But yes.
And I absolutely want to learn more about product marketing because it's a term I hear more and more in our ecosystem, and I don't quite know that I understand it. So I'm hoping you can help me unpack that. But I did some LinkedIn stalking, as you normally do for these, and there's just, I don't even know where to start. You've done so much. I'm curious to hear a bit about sort of what your background is and sort of how you got into the tech and marketing space.
Sure. Well, I feel like we should be opening up with like a Star Wars film trailer that sort of runs through everything up front, right? Because a long time ago in a far distant planet would be it. So part of me is the fact that I'm a school dropout. I mean, I dropped out of school at 17. Obviously from my accent, even though I'm here in Austin, Texas, I was born and raised in England. And back in the very distant past of the early 80s, late 70s, was not a great sort of time in the UK, right? We had high unemployment, we had minor strikes, we had power outages, we had a lot of stuff going on inside the UK. And it's not that I was a bad student. I would consider myself a really good student, early into computer science when we were just working on, old processes and, just trying to make one computer in the school work. And I actually wrote a program that would do entry and where a student had to go to class. So it was literally coding on assembly code, so the machine code itself. So I got an interest in that, but at the same time, I was into science and I was into space and a bunch of other things that surrounded that. So my actual career trajectory was going to be aeronautical engineering. That was what I was more fascinated with, and had opportunities with both NASA and British Aerospace to sort of look at something with them. The problem was the career path that they had guided me to was to change things like French as a language, which is considered diplomatic language, to German, the more scientific language, right? And then focus more on all the sciences with a direct statement of where I was to go to university and then go do postgraduate degree and then get a job with one of them, right? So you're looking at this as like a 17-year-old going, wait, I'm going to be 25, 26 before I land a job, and I've got all this other stuff going on. So I naturally gravitated, and during a summertime school recess, applied for a job in London. I didn't work in London. I lived north of London, applied for a job, got the job as a trainee computer operator on IBM computers that had, if you can vision it this way, a lot of flashing lights and dials that you had to twist.
I'm sort of picturing the imagination game, right, with Benedict Cumberbatch, where it's just a massive machine and it's a mainframe in a room that probably gets pretty warm.
That's what it was. I mean, the compute power that we have nowadays, you could never even envision back then. And you dealt with magnetic tape, and you used to undo the spindles for the cartridges, the 2314 cartridges and everything. And I just loved it. I loved what we could do, but I was this young kid getting paid to travel on a bus, a train, and a tube to London every day, and just got excited about it. And then one day I sort of hit early 20, and I got a job opportunity for a tech company whose software I was using, but I didn't know I was using their software because they were marketed under a different name. And they wanted to start up their operations in Europe. And I remember going for my job interview and literally helping the receptionist unbox a chair so I could sit down. It was that early stage, right? But we grew the company, and then skip forward a few years. I've been traveling in and out of all over Europe and Asia Pacific, and then the US. And then I got an opportunity literally to move to the US because my job was becoming very boring as we'd grown the company into the hundreds of employees. And so I relocated to the wonderful Mecca town of Columbus, Ohio, and did everything from support development, ran professional services, was in marketing. So dipped my hands, my toes, and everything else into a wide range of things that I cared about. But I really cared about the one thing, and that was, what is in it for the customer? What is it that we're building? And why are we building it? And why should it matter to the customer? So instead of starting with that approach, start with the customer. What is the pain that they're experiencing? What do we need to build to solve the pain? And if we were to build it, would they buy it? And then let's go sell it and market it and do those things. So I'm very, very, very committed to customer first as well as partner first centricity in everything that we do.
Yeah, it's interesting, and thanks for that. I definitely grew up being very math and science focused. I loved it because there was the definitive answer, and once you got it, it was right or wrong, and you moved on to the next thing. And I loathed the arts. I didn't loathe the arts. I liked art, but I didn't like writing. I still don't like writing very much.
Yeah.
But this open-ended discipline where you don't actually know if you're getting results versus like a predefined math answer. And I'm very much different. I'm very much in the marketing, partnerships and marketing space. I'm curious, like, when did that evolution happen from sort of being a zeros and ones based thinker? And not that you aren't now, but to looking more broadly at what the impact is to like the greater,
Yeah, I think there's, and hopefully listeners will relate to this too. There happens to be inflection points at every part of your career, right? Where you're either going to decide to continue doing what you're doing or branch and make a decision, right? So I gave the aeronautical engineer or be a computer operator type thing, right? And make those sort of decisions. Do I want to stay on the technical side and write code, right? And the last coding I did was probably in the early 90s on a security platform that we had that ran on IBM and mainframe platforms? Or do I branch out from that and move into the humanistic side, the selling and the empathy world, right? And the pivotal moment for me was, not only was I writing code, but I was presenting to the prospects on the value of what the product would bring to them based off of the problems that I had uncovered in discussing with them. And I think that's the important thing about marketing is you shouldn't lead with your product and then go, so tell me, are you interested? Do you want to buy this thing? We don't walk into a bar or a first date and go with that, right? We want to unfurl and know and get context around what is happening in a specific environment. And then as humans, we tend to want to solution it. So find out more about the prospect and the pain, right? Uncover what's going on. So that was a pivotal moment to stay technical or move into this more ethereal world of marketing and psychology and how to get somebody to buy, and Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And the mind, body, whatever it is that goes on nowadays. And I think those are the inflection points. But I lucked out. I really did luck out. I lucked out in the fact that, in my youth, and still in my teens, and then in my early 20s, I had the opportunity to travel the world. I had the opportunity to meet with customers or prospects at the time in many different countries, because we were just establishing those countries in Europe, whether it was, Rome or Milan in Italy, or Barcelona or Madrid in Spain, or Lisbon, Portugal, or you name it in Germany, right? These were nurturing events to get to know the different types of ways that people like to be sold to. because they are very different, right? French is very, very build the relationship and then we'll talk. Germany's show me the specs and the design and then we'll talk. And the Latin-based countries, in my experience, have been, yes, 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 I love what you're saying. Come back tomorrow and we'll talk more. But by the way, we're going to go for a siesta right now. So, you know, it's different. And that's what I started to enjoy, was that feeling of you can create something that resonates from a product perspective, from a UX design perspective. All of it, though, including marketing and sales, has to be designed around the customer, right? If it's a bad UX design, they're not going to buy it. If it's a bad feature function, they're not going to buy it. If it doesn't solve their problem, they're not going to buy it. So understand the customer and then work your way backwards to be able to do something. So
it isn't, and that's great. I think, isn't it, you know, you are putting forth the hypothesis in sort of the marketing world. You are going out there, you are trying to educate and influence, quite frankly, but you don't, on the marketing side, want to say, make this decision, right? You want to lead the horse to water, as it were. And when you're able to do that, and the horse comes and drinks, it's really gratifying. You're like, you know what? That was it. It was the right message to send, and it got the intended outcome, which is the right.
Yeah. I think the way that I have always led and encouraged people to market, to sell, is that you want to create ambassadors, right? The best, lowest way of selling is to get a customer of yours to say to somebody else, you should buy this because it's going to save something. It's going to do something for you, right? And there's a lot of really good books. And I'll always reference back to solution selling. And actually way, way, way back to Mike Bosworth, who was a great solution selling expert from a long time ago. I think he was former Kodak. He built out 9 boxes, and the first couple of boxes were all about uncovering the pain points of your customer, your prospect. But it was then, once you've uncovered that person's pain points, why they can't grow the business, what the impact is on them personally and professionally, and who else is impacted, then there's a box where you literally stick the knife into the ribs and twist it around a bit, right? Because you want them to feel and acknowledge the pain. Okay. And then you want them to create the vision as to how they solve the pain themselves, that then maps into the solution that you have, right? Because like, even if you think about e-commerce nowadays, there's a lot of e-commerce platforms on the market. There's over 500 different platforms that do all sorts of different things. And I'm sure we can all say that we're all the e-commerce platform that a merchant should need. It's recognizing that, yes, we are an e-commerce platform. Yes, you're going to be able to do this with your orders, and you're going to be able to have this wonderful way of creating the front end and being headless or not headless, whatever you want to do. But this is how we do it differently than the others. And these are customers that are using our platform for speed and for innovation, to be able to launch DNVB brands pretty quickly, or to expand their B2B to B2C as well, and do it at scale, but do it at speed and do it simply, and then be able to bolt on through innovation and unique ads. So it's really a matter of uncovering, getting the merchant or the prospect to recognize their own pain, that they can solve it. What is the vision to solve it? And then mapping how to solve it with your solution, and then showing them that you're not the only one, right? There are others as well. So yes, your analogy of horse to water is absolutely perfect, but it's not as easy as that, right? There's some psychology that you have to play at. And that's important in all the marketing materials or webinars or anything else you do. It literally is, you've got to hook like a fish, and then you've got to spend the time reeling it in. Albeit I don't fish. I've never.
and I don't work with horses either. But and with all due respect to the folks to whom we're speaking in our marketing, this is they're just easy analogies to make. Yeah. And I think it really speaks to why it is so critical for any company, certainly in the tech space, to have those strong partnerships. When you talk about sort of selling yourself versus selling your partner, when you work for an entity and you are directly selling that product to an end user, you don't risk credibility to the brand because that's all you're selling. Whereas if I, as Overdose, say, hey, you should really talk to BigCommerce, they could be a really good solution for you. All of a sudden, it's one, as long as they trust me, and I hope they do, and I hope I've carried myself in such a way, where they go, you know what? Because Overdose said to talk to them, they already have credibility.
Yep.
And I find it much easier to sell, as it were, our partners than to sell ourselves. And I think that goes for everybody. It's an easier, it feels more organic, because it is more organic, to say, listen, I trust these guys, have a look. And I think that is what drives our industry, is that ecosystem of people bringing in the right partners to solve the right pain points for that merchant.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm full of analogies. There's a lot of folks on my different
absolutely love it.
will tell me, right? It is the broken link in the chain, right? You want to create a chain of trust, and if you recommend something that just doesn't pan out, not only are you going to get pain because the merchant, if it's, for us, it's also the other way around, right? If we're an e-com platform with, as we have it, a very curated set of partners, we don't have 50,000 partners like other e-com providers have, because for me, that's it's worse than the McDonald's menu, right? How I know what is it I want to go ahead and pick. We have curated partners from agency and tech partners that we know can and do deliver for merchants. They do what they say they're going to do, and they do it very, very well. If we step out of those bounds, there's a risk factor, right? Just as you said, that trusted link of partners, whether you're thinking about subscriptions or email or ERPs or POSs or whatever it is, right? Anything fails along that line, it's not just that partner that may have a bad rap, but it's also you as the tech platform that may have a bad rap, and even you as an agency that may have a bad rap as well. And we know that people do move around from jobs to jobs, and they're going to carry that with them. And our role, I think, in e-commerce is not only to make the merchant unbelievably successful, right? Orders up the wazoo, average order volume, conversion rates, lower their abandoned cart rates, make sure that they're focusing on, a really good omni-channel, or they're going from brick to click or brick to multiple clicks, right? As they're looking through omni. We want them to be successful as a company, as a brand, but it's also the individuals that are doing it, right? Because you go back to the earlier statement, it is the person that we started the talk with, to uncover the pain or understand their vision as to what they want to be able to be, right? A widely known DMVB brand that is also augmenting their direct-to-consumer strategy with an omni strategy as well, and going after people. We want that person to be the hero. We want them to be able to go home and say, wow, I'm really proud of what we built, what we did, this unique, compelling experience that we built into the front-end stack of our website, and our conversions and our orders are going up. Our cross-sell is improving. And I would hate to say it this way, but it's good for them. Wow, you're now a commodity that others will want to hire in to go do things at another company, right? So success is multi-laned for me. It's making sure that everybody is able to achieve what they want to achieve. And your word of trust is just so important nowadays in the marketplace, right?
Amen to that, and appreciate that thoughtful response. More on the partner ecosystem, and I certainly want to do a little pivot to understand explicitly sort of what you guys are doing over at BigCommerce. That's very exciting. For anyone listening, by all means, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in, and we will get to them as they pop up. So jump on in. We talk about the partnership ecosystem and how it drives our industry really. And you think about sort of what it takes to plant those seeds, water them, have that grow, and have it be a resource that keeps on giving, as it were. And the added benefit of, if you're just doing one-off outbound sales and that's your approach, it's one and done, right? If you screw it up, you screw it up and you move on. But in an effective partner ecosystem, you need to continue to sort of tend the garden, as it were, right? And if you tend the garden with sort of what the effort takes, it will keep on bearing fruit and bearing flowers. So it is in everyone's best interest to make the right recommendations to those merchants for the right techs. And every merchant is different. Every merchant's a snowflake. It requires a bespoke solution, irrespective of what e-com platform they're on. And e-commerce isn't easy. It's not easy for anybody. It's not easy for us. We've been doing it for 25 years. There's always going to be complications. So you need to be able to know that you can trust your partners to show up when things get hard, because there will always be a moment in a project where there's a crossroads where you need that support. And I think one of the things that really drew us to BigCommerce several years ago is you guys have always been vocal about being partner first. And I think we talked about earlier this week, and I say this almost daily, so anyone, will probably get sick of me saying it, but your tech is only as good as the team that supports it. You could have very good zeros and ones, but if there's no one there to help support it during the implementation or after launch, your tech sucks, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about why, unlike some other platforms, when they went to market, you guys absolutely were partner first at everything you did in all your communications?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's probably a couple of answers to that, Andy. And first one would be, we don't want to be everything to everybody, right? Being a big monolith, just for us is just dumbfounding when an e-commerce platform wants to be everything, right? Because you're probably excluding many from their ability to innovate and grow. From a merchant perspective, that is very, very true as well, right? You can look at some of the monolithic platforms that have been around for a long time. As a merchant, you're incumbent upon that platform to make the feature functionality change that you're expecting, right? And we know, even if you just look at how COVID, March of 2020 impacted retail, right? There was an immediate fast pivot to online shopping, right? We all had to do that. Well, if you didn't have the right features, functions inside of your e-com platform, you're kind of left behind in the dust a little bit. For me, it's about getting the right partners matched to a merchant depending on where they are in their size of growth, right? Because you could be that entrepreneur, small biz that needs a unique set of e-com app partners to get going and to establish your brand, right? Maybe you're using, MailChimp or some sort of just direct trying to go after build communities. Maybe you're thinking about building a CMS, or you move from being the blog world and you've got great WordPress content, but now you're trying to plug in selling whatever it is you've got. So you need to take your plugin from WordPress and stick it into like a BC platform. So you're really early stages to SMBs, to then the mid markets, and then the big enterprise companies that have got it. You want to be able to scale at the right time for you, right? Why pay a boatload of money if you are a small business merchant and you're just making sure that you can grow and scale, right? You've got to worry about logistics and 3PL and shipping. And hey, now we're doing cross-border. Now we've got to worry about taxes. And then we've got to write landing costs, right? So you're beginning to start that conversation, but you're also beginning to grow because you're going to probably see more customers. As you grow, some of the early apps that you have may not be the right apps for you in that tech stack, because there may be more feature functionality at a different price point that you're willing to pay for and establish and use, or have deeper integrations into things that are going. So when we look at how BigCommerce has evolved, right, with our open SaaS platform strategy, it is about openness, and it is about flexibility, and it is about scale and speed and allowing you as a merchant to grow with it. We don't have that historical closedness of pure SaaS, where you as the merchant can't innovate through APIs, you as a tech partner can't build something unique because you want to add augmented reality, 3D VR, right, to it. So it's not closed, we're open. We got 95% of our platform is opened up through APIs and SDKs. And it's not just pure open source. We can have a whole ton of developers develop code that then sort of springs off in different directions. And now you have to worry about support and security and malware and stuff. We sort of sit squarely in the middle with open SaaS. Freedom and flexibility of open source, design, develop, integrate, build unique experiences, and then the openness now of SaaS with the APIs and the SDKs. That allows you as a tech provider or an agency to really go back to what we talked about at the beginning. What is the vision that you have, Mr. or Mrs. Merchant. What is it you see yourself as? How would you define a unique shopping experience? How do you want to configure your checkout? What would you like your experience to be in defining promos on the website? Do you want to rely on an IT staff to go do that? Or do you want to take an open API headless model and really give it to your merchandising, marketing, e-com people to build in reaction to market changes, aka COVID, or aka competitive, or aka anything else that you want to expand into a market? So that's our approach. Look, you don't need heavy IT. Yes, you may want to have an agency involved to help build, because they have the experience, those unique experiences, and blend in video and chat and everything else into it. But after that, what is it you want to do as a merchant? So for us, it really is about openness, and that means really having a good curated set of partners from the agency side who know what they can build, how they can build it, and what the merchant needs to actually pull in those unique shopping experiences. And then from the tech eco side, so that you can either start up and grow, you're in the middle and grow, or you're in the enterprise and grow. And you want different feature functionality, right? From subscriptions to mail to, 3D augmented reality, whatever it is. So, our firm grasp is purely around the customer and then the partner first, right? With a solid base of BigCommerce, e-commerce behind the scenes, right? And that flexibility to build into the platform, whatever it is you want to be as you vision it.
I'm smiling because I was about to ask you if you could talk to me a little bit about what product marketing means, but I think I just got a lesson of what that is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's simple, right? We boil it down in product marketing, and I've got awesome product marketers. And by the way, I'm going to put a plug out here.
Go for it.
We're growing. So, if you want to join the product marketing team, let me know. If you want to join our competitive intel marketing team, they're growing. If you want to join my PR team, we're growing there too, right? 3 plugs. I got it out there. But let's boil product marketing down, right? It's, what is the market? What is the total addressable market, right? And so you've got your TAM, SOM, SAM, right? What do we really believe is our addressable part of the market that we can go after? And inside of that, what are the core functional things that market needs to have, or what are the core problems that part of the market is facing that we know that we can address, or we're going to build into the platform to address? Who are the personas, right? What does Andrew do versus Todd, right? What are the different titles? As the different titles, what do they care about most? Do you care more about the ethereal feel-good stuff? Does Todd care more about the financials, right? How do we map things into that? What are the core messaging that resonates, and building out what I'm firmly behind, and I've done this at a couple of companies, building out core messaging platforms. What is the before state and the after state? The before negative business consequences, the positive business outcomes. So what was it like before, or you're facing today, that pain that we talked about earlier? What is the vision afterwards? What is the after, positive business outcomes, right? What is it you need to have? What is it that we do that does that? And how do we do it differently from the competition? And then what is the backup evidence, the metrics, the references, the case studies that build that into it? You build out a core messaging platform, and then you take those messages and value pillars and turn it over to campaigns and social and SEO, right? Digital, that can help turn it, and also brand, right? Because there's tonality too. How do we turn that then into the messaging constructs and frameworks that can be used by the campaigns team, the content team, the brand team, the social team, the digital team? And that's what product marketing does. But we also have to obviously work with our product team, because we're marketing the product, right? But if we do the drumbeat of this is the feature, nobody's going to land that, right? If we talk about the pain that you're trying to address, or perceived pain, you go, yeah, that's me, then we can say, okay, this is how we address it. So product marketing is, I love it. I mean, I love, because it sits within a company and operates with sales for sales enablement and sales training and sales awareness. It operates with product, beginning at design and beta testing and alpha testing and launch and GTM activities. We're the voice of the customer and pushing back insights into what the market is really hearing and seeing and using. We work with the support teams on what they're hearing, because I mean, we're just around so many things. And the other thing for me, and we're not going to talk about some of my working history with 3-letter acronyms, right? But it's all about data. And I just am a big believer in data. If you can show me the data, then I can start figuring out what could we be doing or should we be doing differently. And I'm not a financial person, so I'll never, ever be able to fully understand all the financial ins and outs. I've got my grasp of SaaS, MRR, and everything else, right? But for me, it's about how do we generate more MQLs into the acquisition pipeline that turn into a higher percentage of sales accepted leads, right? So that they can go ahead and close more. And that's how I look at my measurement, right? Am I telling a story, which in the basic form is what product marketing does, in a way that gets a lot of people to want to sit around the campfire and say, tell me more. And if they say, tell me more, then I've got the hooks that we talked about earlier that we can now drag them in and say, hey, we have a solution to that problem that you heard in the story, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, and certainly I think is a course unto itself. And we just got the notes of it, and I think it's all is spot on, as they say. And I think we talked about earlier this week about how when we go to market, my goal is to have merchants come and knock on our door and say, we would love to work with you. Can we work with you? Right? This is not a going out and saying, hey, will you work with us at Mr. and Mrs. Merchant? This is the idea is to drive them toward you, to be such a compelling offer that you are magnetic and that you are drawing them in, as you noted. Which is just as a marketer, that's my philosophy. Certainly, there's always sales reps out there that are much more sort of outbound. I think one of the areas when you talk about sort of listening to the market, collecting that data, and then acting it to address whatever pain points there are. I think one area you guys have done particularly well in over the past 18 months is in growing out your partner ecosystem on the tech side. Yep. One of the things that we struggled with a bit a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, let's say, when we were considering BigCommerce for some of our clients, was they were so used to this robust marketplace of apps and extensions and plug and play, and they had as much as there is less loyalty to third-party tech than core tech stack items like ERP and e-com platform, they wanted to bring some techs over with them, and they couldn't at the time because you guys you weren't mature enough as a platform to have, you hadn't been around long enough to have that robust ecosystem. And I think over the past 18 months, it's been really impressive to see the activity you guys have, the actions you made in that market to bring more folks in on the tech side to build out those extensions and be in the marketplace.
Well, that's awesome to hear from you. Everything we do is intentional, right? And again, the word I used before was curated apps, curated tech partners. It is intentional because we want to make sure that it's a right fit for the merchants at their stages of growth, right? We have a single platform that supports everyone. So, 99.99% uptime availability at SaaS. We deal with the PCI compliance and the security, the upgrades and everything else. But our tech partners are core to expanding that platform, right? By delivering everything, as I mentioned before, from subscriptions to payments, right? From shipping to augmented reality, right? And we're not in the game to go ahead and build that in or develop it ourselves. There's no need to. There's a ton of brilliant minds out there that are innovative every day, right? There's people like the folks, shameless name drop at Fast.io, right? One-click checkout. It's awesome, right? And doing it. 3Kit for augmented reality. It is innovation, though, that we also do inside of the platform, like our channels manager, that allows a merchant very easily, literally with a click, to decide, you know what, I'm going to go sell on Facebook shops. I'm going to sell on Instagram checkout, or I'm going to use the new Walmart integration that we rolled out a couple of weeks ago, right? And making sure that they have the feature functionality that they need through those types of partners. So it's not all tech partner integrations or innovation. We're also innovating in the platform as well, and we're consistently innovating. And sure, we're going to, from time to time, have merchants that are unhappy with the way it's designed, or they were used to the layout, right? And the layout has changed, or we've added something that they didn't need yet. And that's because, you know, we have a big, broad merchant base that we're trying to solve for. I mean, how many of us would raise our hand when we were upset with Facebook when they changed the UI a few times? So I want to go back to the old way of Facebook, right? You want to go back to the old way of doing it, but the new way is offering a lot of new functionality. And that's how we look at it too, both in our core platform feature set, including things that we're building today that we haven't even announced yet, which are going to be phenomenal for merchants and their speed of growth, as well as for tech partners, as well as for tech partners, and, you know, the ability to do new things with the platform, right? As we innovate, the merchant can innovate and the partner can innovate too.
One of the beautiful things about our ecosystem, and I've been in it for about 5 years now, is we've kind of grown up together. You look at the techs that started servicing SMBs and smaller mid-market folks. You look at, say, the Yachtpos who just announced today they've raised $230 million. And when you see these techs, look at, as you said, look at the pain points of growing merchants and start baking in functionality, or, you know, addressing those with fixes or whatever it is, to be able to scale with those growing merchants has been really rewarding to see. And I think it's made for a stronger ecosystem and a stronger tech stack for those growing merchants. And I've been sort of on this, you know, this rant recently about SMB techs scaling versus enterprise techs trying to reach down market. And the former has been a very successful model, and the latter, I've seen a lot of struggles, because if you're built for enterprise and you're trying to reach down market, there's some technical debt you're inheriting there on the merchant side, because an SMB, a market growing merchant, doesn't have the same resources internally to run with the enterprise tech to maintain it day to day. So I'm curious sort of what your thoughts are and what you've seen in this space.
No, I am completely aligned to you, and that's what the story I was trying to pivot to before about IT, right? I don't come from ecom. Bless you. My experience with ecom is the fact that I buy tissues online to ship to Andrew. Oh dear.
It should be it. I'm a three sneezer.
Okay, as long as you're okay, and there's no Dr. Heimlich I have to call right now or anything like that. So, but, you know, my experience with ecom literally has been as a consumer, as a shopper, right? And you go back to it's got to be customer first, right? I have expectations on a lot of things, and unfortunately, you know, expectations have been accelerated with COVID, for good or for bad. But I come from enterprise management. I come from cybersecurity, enterprise management, agile management, big behemoth type of things that major companies have to run to actually keep their servers alive, their people safe, right? And you and I in jobs, behind the scenes work. When you get IT involved, more often than not, you can have lengthy projects. You have another investment you have to go ahead and account for every year. You've got maintenance that may be needed ongoing, especially if you're relying on your IT organization to build the e-com stack, right, and integrate it. And that's another story we can have around APIs and microservices, right, is you can still build unique, differentiated shopper experiences, but you don't need to have a wealth of IT people building it, right? My vision would be find the tech eco partners, build it into an open SaaS environment like BigCommerce, and launch quickly. Because that's the other downside, right? Is we as marketers at a merchant want to get our product, I'm trying to think around what I've got as a product, glasses for lack of them, right, out as quickly as possible. We want to establish ourselves, our brand and our marketplace, and ultimately our consumers, our shoppers, and build loyalty and returns and everything else that comes from that. if I'm delayed from launching, or if there's this grandiose vision of we have an IT organization that can go build it, you have a ton of developers, we don't need any platform or tech partner or ecosystem. We can build it ourselves through APIs and microservices, and it'll be done in 6 months, and the cost is going to be $500,000, but you're also going to have ongoing overhead. That's ongoing overhead to maintain it. Maintain it as the world is changing ahead of you, right? And in the enterprise space, we used to learn of shadow IT organizations. Why were the shadow IT organizations? Because IT couldn't move fast enough to deliver what the business needed. So the business went out and bought a technology stack that needed a systems integrator to go integrate. And the only reason we find out about it was the SI and the tech stack had to go to the CISO to get security approved on all the different components that the tech stack had. And then you find out, and then you realize, well, they've allocated a budget over here to go build it, but IT should be building it. So you just get this mix smash. So for me, it's like, let's think about what we use in today's world, whether it's iPhone or Android, right? It's apps. You download an app to do something. You download an app to figure out if you're going to get your stimulus check back. You download an app to see if you need to register for something, or to book a flight, or to book a hotel. We're app-based, so create the ecosystem, as we like to say it, around BigCommerce's open SaaS platform, and plug in the innovations you want. Yeah, if you want to go do something different, use the APIs and the SDKs to extend it even further. But the richness of tech partners is what's driving innovation in the e-com world.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. And I think to your point about being quick to market with your tech stack and being smart about it and getting that MVP up and running, as long as it's better than what you have today, you're in better shape. You don't need to make it the perfect, robust, every feature function you need down the road, right? Roll it out in a phased approach and start plugging in after launch. Just get it up and running. As long as it transacts and you can, your payment gateway works, you can collect funds and do returns, then you're good to go.
Exactly. That's why agile processes, right? Epics and Scrum teams and all these other things are useful to roll, as well as, I say this to my teams. I don't need something to be 100% done to get it out of the gate. As long as you're 80 to 90% of the way done, that 10% is going to come as you do a retrospective to look back as to how you could have improved. But it's also going to come in forms of feedback from the customers who are using it today, right? And that's really important that you get that customer feedback so that we can turn it back, go back into product, go back into support, right? And enhance the processes that we have.
But if you're a merchant who isn't digitally native, and is sort of has their legacy brick and mortar operation, and having come from an organization like that in Home Depot, sort of the old school way of doing retail. That in this store, this end cap will take 4 hours to change out. It's this many people to do it. It's this much product. It will sell out in this many days. It's very formulaic because we know how brick and mortar retail works for our businesses. The internet's the Wild West. It's still the Wild West. E-com is the Wild West. We are still trying to learn, and we learn every day how to measure customer behavior and traffic, and how to react to that to give a better experience. So whereas if you swapped out an end cap in a Home Depot and it was the wrong thing, you're like, oh man, now I got the overhead to redo that whole thing, versus digital. Once you build the store brick and mortar, it's a shitload of work to rebuild a store. But in digital, you can tweak it on the fly. It doesn't have to be perfect when you open the doors to that store. And I think that's sort of, for digitally native brands, it's much easier to reconcile that with sort of the way digital works. Well, but for traditional brands, it's a bit, it's more of a challenge.
Yeah, but I'll challenge you on that and say that challenges, as you mentioned, right, or blockers and being able to change things out, are the great innovators for people to think about doing differently, right? A good brick and mortar store who has now decided to go digital, but basically take the replication of the physical store and replicate it digitally, and then has internal problems about changing or enhancing or changing the carousel out or doing something because it takes so long and I've got to wait for Bob over in IT to go do it, and it's like a change process and a JIRA ticket and authorization, right? There are other ways, right? You mentioned DNVBs, right? Maybe a business should think about their business models a little bit differently and think about slicing as DNVBs, right? We've had some CPG brands that have done that themselves, right? They've seen the Dollar Shave Club and the Harry's and everything else spin up against them, and now they're trying to compete and doing it very well against them. For a Home Depot, right? There's no reason potentially sometimes that you can't spin up microsite stores, right? That build an ecosystem, that tag in content, that embed user-generated content around grilling, right? There's only 3 or 4 sets or types of grills that Home Depot goes ahead and sells, right? It's like Kenmore and.
I'll let that one slide, but go ahead.
Well, but you know what I mean. But there are things that these bigger brand stores could be thinking about because they're going to have to compete. You and I hope we go back to some sense of normality once this pandemic is over, right? But at the same time as we go back to enjoy the restaurants and the outdoor activities and shopping, we're just as finger responsive to mobile tablet. And there are great technologies, you mentioned Yotpo, right? And congrats to them, that can start embedding into our daily lives, whether or not we realize it or not. Right? And it's there. We're being marketed to. Data's being collected on us all the time, right? And it's a position where we don't realize until we've just clicked checkout and purchase, right? That there's a long stream of data around us. Big box stores have got to find the same way to be able to do that. Omni-channel, right, is a good way to try and test in the different markets that they may want to go find it, right? When you get into the psychology that we talked about earlier on around marketing, it is a blend of online and offline. It is the psychology of putting your razor blades on the end of a shelf in a physical grocery store, as well as a pop-up ad that may come in Instagram with the ease of Instagram checkout, which obviously we have enabled in our platform. And then maybe a digital ad, something else on Google that may pop up. It's all combined. It doesn't just happen because we as humans also notice things around us. We notice things when somebody has something that we don't. We want it. That's the viral effect, right? So for me, marketing and e-com, brick, click, multiple click, right? It's all connected. And, for us, something that they've got to do is for us get bricks online.
Absolutely agreed. I think, but there's also the challenge, the inherent challenge of reconciling the legacy way of doing things with the fast moving digital. We were so proud when we were at the Home Depot, when we rolled out, what we called BOPIS, right? Buy online, pick up in store. And then the reverse of that, which is BORIS, right? Buy online, return in store. So BOPIS and BORIS, an endless aisle. And we had these devices, and we were one of the first out there to truly roll out, a buy online, pick up in store model on a national scale with over 2,000 stores. And we were pushing it, we were marketing it, and that's what we were. We were the first. And then people would get to the store to pick up their online order, and nobody in the store knew how to properly close out an order in the device. They couldn't actually pick it up, and it became a major sticking point. That was a sticking point. The other sticking point was they hadn't thought through entirely how to reconcile online orders with store orders. So it became, if it's an online order, this endless aisle, it's taking away from my bottom line and my store revenue. So why would I push people to go endless aisle from in store if I'm going to lose the sale? So, there's the left hand, right hand, right? How are you pulling them together to make sure that everyone is sort of rowing in the same direction? I think that's a challenge that's definitely still out there.
Yeah, and the returns, I think, is a huge challenge today for many, many merchants on how they deal with it. I had a returns experience where I physically took the item back to the store, having purchased it online, having been told by social Twitter that, yeah, everything's taken care of. We've got a new one coming out to you. Just return it to the store. Nobody knew how to accept my return because it had been closed out by the people on Twitter as having been returned because they'd already shipped me a replacement. And they're like, well, we don't know how to do it because it says that you've returned it. I'm like, I'm physically holding it right now. And the only way that I wanted to prove legally that I had returned it was asking the department manager to stand there in a photograph that I took on my iPhone, holding the item with it, right? Because I don't want to be, well, you never returned it to the store, or you haven't seen it in inventory. So there are a lot of gaps left to fill on where we go. But the one word that you used before, and I think that is key to any business really understanding how to grow, is understanding the customer experience, right? It is the experience of the customer. That long chain, to use that analogy again, from acquisition into the pipe, the electronic pipe, the physical pipe of retail, all the way through to returns and everything along the way as far as shipping and all those other things. And it's if any one of those things breaks, you have a social media problem on yourself when customers start doing it, and those people don't become the ambassadors that you and I talked about before, right? I'll give you an example of what I think is interesting customer service. We had the big storms here in Texas, right? We had snowvid, as we called it, ice, snow, whatever it was, and we couldn't get out of our homes. I kind of lucked out that I didn't have any plumbing problems, any pipes that broke. But I knew that my water heaters, both of them, did need to be replaced. They're about 20 years old, and a great plumber that I use a lot. Is he expensive? Yes. Do I know I'm getting good quality? Yes, and I'm willing to pay for that. What is his follow-up? Well, immediately as he's finished the job, and it's a small company, he sends you a quick, put a smiley face or an angry face, how's our customer service? And then last night, because he was here on Monday, I get a notification on my mobile phone that Tiff's Treats, which is an online cookie delivery, right? Fresh cookies delivered to your door within 30 minutes, still warm and hot, had been ordered for me from an anonymous source. What time did I want them delivered? And I was like, okay, 7:30, that's fine. I got my kid here, I'll do that. The cookies were delivered, they were warm, they were fresh, and a little note was on there. Thank you for using our service, signed by the book, right? And so that's the whole experience, right? That on the rest of it, I would say, wow, they're pretty expensive compared to others. But from the moment they say they're on the way, when they're here with a greeting, with a face mask, using shoe covers, right? Laying out all they're going to do, putting the carpet rugs up as to make sure they protect the carpet and everything else. I'm willing to pay that extra, right? And I'm willing to refer them now as a brand to others who may be interested. And that's what why experience matters. And if a chain link breaks, like the returns, that's when somebody will get angry and is willing to post, right, and do those things. So,
for sure. And I think you think back to your example where in the old world it would have just been, here's the one I don't need, thanks for the new one, see ya. I walk out the door, right? It's an even exchange. And in the Home Depot example, as proud as we were of rolling out BOPIS and how we thought it was going to be a game changer for stores and customer satisfaction, it did quite the opposite, right? It made people even more frustrated with the store because they couldn't get their product. So you gotta think these things through. Very cool. I really, we'll wrap up. We've gone a bit longer than normal, but this has been absolutely a joy chatting with you, as I knew it would be. And I'm sure there's so much more we could unpack, but time is short these days. So really appreciate you joining Meghan Stabler from BigCommerce. Hope to do this again. We will have you, I believe, Meghan, next week on Clubhouse with us.
I'm going to be on Clubhouse. Yeah, I've just figured out what Clubhouse is. It wasn't taking me back to 1970s London nightclub era, so I've just realized that I don't have to worry about that.
But what it was taking you back to probably was 80s, 90s party lines, which were a thing.
There you go.
It's very much a live audio chat with groups, and it's really fun. We're having some fun on it, so we do that daily at 4 o'clock. But Thank you for joining Overdose and Show, Megan, and anyone who is listening, watching. We will be back next week for this, and we're back on Clubhouse actually today at 4 o'clock, and we will chat soon, Megan, I'm sure.
Thanks, Andrew. Enjoyed it.
Thanks very much. Take care.